Okay, welcome everybody at 7 o'clock. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll go ahead and open up the Community Development Agency and call it to order. The Opens Meeting Act is posted on the rear wall next to the agendas. This time we'll have roll call.
Please vote for roll call. Eight members are present, Mayor.
Okay, this meeting has 3 items. We are gathering additional information. All 3 need to be continued until the November 14th meeting. So we just take a motion to continue items 1, 2, and 3 to the November 14th meeting. Councilman Sukram.
I'll make that motion, continue items to November 14th, 2023.
Councilman Jensen.
I'll second.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Take a motion to adjourn the Community Development Agency meeting. Councilman Jensen.
So moved.
Councilman Sukram.
I'll second.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
We are adjourned. I'll go ahead and open up the City Council regular meeting and call it to order. The time is 7:01. The Opens Meeting Act is posted on the rear wall next to the agendas. This time we'll have roll call.
Please vote for roll call. 8 council members are present, Mayor.
Next is mayor's comments. I don't have any information for tonight, so we'll move on to item 1, which is a motion to adopt the current agenda for the October 10th, 2023 regular meeting. Councilman Jensen.
I'll make the motion to amend the current agenda to continue items 2 through 5 to the November 14th, 2023 City Council meeting.
Okay, Councilman Sukram, is there any additional changes?
No, I'll second.
Okay. So that would be a motion to amend to continue items 2 through 5 to the November 14th City Council meeting. I'll cast your votes on that amendment.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Councilman Jensen.
I'll make the motion to approve the amended current agenda.
Councilman Sukram.
I will second that.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Okay, moving on. This would be to item 6 is resolution 2023-237 to approve a conditional use permit for a cheerleading academy. This would be indoor recreation on property generally located at 3303 North Broad Street.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, Jennifer Dam, Planning Director. This is a conditional use permit to allow indoor recreation, in this case, a cheerleading academy on property located at 3303 North Broad. It's part of a long building and in an industrial area. The proposed facility meets the requirements that are specified in 11-50402N of the Unified Development Code. Which requires them to be 300 feet from a residential GI or AV district unless they have the type C buffer yard or are separated by a collector or arterial roadway. Primary access to the site is from an arterial roadway. There won't be an undue burden on neighboring properties with traffic, parking, and noise. The academy will operate in evening hours. The rest of the facility will be mostly vacant at that point in time. So it makes for a nice joint use of the parking in that area. And it will meet all of the local, state, and federal requirements. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions from the council? Okay, thank you. I'll now open the public hearing on this item. Any comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Are there any additional comments from council? If there are none, I would take a motion. Councilman Jensen,
No additional comments. I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2023-237.
Councilman Von Baron,
I'll second that.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 7-0 with one abstention, Mayor.
Okay, item 7 is a resolution 2023-238 recommending approval of a Class C liquor license application of Three Rouse Entertainment LLC doing business as Fremont Theaters at 866 East 23rd Street.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We received this application from the state of Nebraska. We have included reports from our police department and planning department recommending approval, and notice of this public hearing was published on September 28th. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, questions for our clerk on this item from the council? Okay, seeing none, I will open the public hearing.
Steve Ray, 1445 North Irving Street, Fremont. I'd like to see you deny this permit. I know you very seldom, as far as I've been here, you never do. And I was just told that they didn't think you could deny a permit. I don't know why not. If you can't deny them, what's the point of even bringing them before you? But I don't think a theater, I realize Omaha and all of them got them, but a lot of children go there. A lot of times they're unattended. They go to see a movie and their parents drop them off and what have you. There's hardly any venue in Fremont anymore where there is not liquor or alcohol sold. I want to thank you for last year. You had the good sense to deny Bergen's Homecoming and thought it was. And I think it's the same situation here. I just do not think it's proper to have it all the time. If an adult wants to go there, they surely can go to a movie for a couple hours without having to have alcohol served and all the things that go with it. And I can see where you could end up with some problems. Somebody could get something and take it in the theater and give it to a minor. I just think you're asking for trouble, and I'd like to see it denied. Watch out for some of the children and stuff and let them have a place where there's no alcohol all the time to be worried about for anything.
Jeff Rao, 315 North William. I'm the owner of Three Rouse Entertainment. What he says is true about, maybe a place without kids, but for my business to stay viable, we have to be competitive with the market. Everybody in Omaha has it. I ran theaters in Omaha that had it. We never had an issue. I'm at the theater working. I've got everybody except for one student is above the age of 19. We do monitor the alcohol going in and out. We will have wristbands on everybody. We will give wristbands to everybody that is able to have the alcohol. We will pour the alcohol into a clear cup. All our other cups are colored, so it's easy to tell which one is colored, which one is not when we're going in and out of the auditoriums. We know we can pick. We know we can watch the auditorium exits. We know everybody comes out the exit doors. We can watch those coming through. Really, there's no reason to deny it. Like I said, everybody else has it. Restaurants have children in them. They serve alcohol. If you go in to watch a ball game, basketball game, Creighton game, Mavericks hockey game, there's children there. There is alcohol there. I understand the demographics of the city. We do have kids coming in. We do have parents coming in, but it's not like any other facility that has this service also. If anybody has any questions on anything, they can always come to me also. Appreciate your time.
Okay. Any other comments from the public on this item? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Comments from council on this item? Councilman Jensen?
Yes, when I first saw that they put in a golf simulator in there, I wondered if this wasn't going to come up on us next. And that's
It was in place before that too, but yes, that has.
yeah, it makes sense. I'm kind of glad to see something else going into the mall to draw people into the mall. My understanding, I'm sure you can correct me if I'm wrong, is we can't deny. It's basically we're making a recommendation or not making a recommendation to the state, and the state decides. Is that not correct?
Yeah, that's correct. The liquor commission will eventually decide. If we have a denial, they can consider that in their process, but.
Okay, any other comments from council? Okay. Seeing none, I'd take a motion. Councilman Jensen,
I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2023-238.
Councilman Vaughn,
I will second.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 7-1, Mayor.
Okay, moving on to item 8 is ordinance 5657 to amend sections 11-824, sections 11-825 of the Unified Development Code relating to off-premise directional signs and to off-premise commercial electronic messaging signs.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, Jennifer Dam, Planning Director. I sent out a copy of the staff report earlier today, and I have copies here if I could get a motion to receive. I had 21 separate pieces that I had to get on this agenda and get out early to get out of town, and somehow I messed up and didn't have the staff report for this in the file for the packet. I'm really embarrassed, but if I could get a motion to receive, I would hand this out.
Councilman Vaughn,
I'd make that motion.
Councilman Sukram,
I'll second.
cast your votes to receive the staff report.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
This is a request that came from Dave Mitchell and Victor Signs. In 2017, when the UDC was adopted, off-premise signs were eliminated and made non-conforming uses. Off-premise signs are signs that advertise a good or service that are not on the property on which the sign is located. Other off-premise signs that this also addresses would be directional signs for religious institutions, nonprofit or governmental entities. There were several individuals that had expressed concern or a desire to have electronically changeable billboards along the New South Bypass, the 275/30 corridor, and then north on Highway 77. So over the last probably 6 months, we've been meeting and talking and negotiating. And I think we came up with some language that would be acceptable. What we are talking about would be, again, the electronic changeable message signs along the highways by state statute. Those need to be at least 5,000 feet apart from each other, the sign faces that are facing the same direction. So that would limit the location and the number of signs to about 1 every mile in that area. Additionally, we're recommending that they only be allowed on properties that have general industrial, light industrial, port authority, or general commercial zoning. We're also adding a change that would allow directional signage on a highway for places of worship or governmental or nonprofit institutions. There was an individual who for the last 5 years has been requesting a sign to provide direction to a church that he is a member of. And currently that would not be allowed because it's an off-premise sign. Prior to the Planning Commission meeting, Dave Mitchell reviewed the language and had asked for some additional changes. The Planning Commission voted to accept the language as it was prepared, 8-0. Following that meeting, I met with Mr. Mitchell and we talked about some of the changes to the language. Mostly it was for clarification, but there was an additional request to allow the electronic signs along the 23rd Street corridor and the North Broad Street corridor north of 23rd Street. But the hitch with that was that they would be willing to remove 4 existing static signs if we allowed them to put an electronically changeable sign in a location on that corridor. Again, 5,000 feet from another sign. That will reduce the net number of signs that we have in the community. And I think that's a nice compromise. We're also requiring them to be mounted on a monopole structure instead of signs that you might see that have multiple poles. Again, it reduces the visual distraction of those particular signs. They need to be 5,000 feet apart. And if there's an existing sign, static sign, and they put an ECM on one side, we're recommending that they be allowed to actually increase the size of the static size sign to match the ECM sign, so that you don't have the large sign on one side and then a smaller sign on the other side, and you look at the back of the electronic sign, it wouldn't be as aesthetically pleasing. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any questions? Don't see any.
Okay.
Open the public hearing on this item.
Good evening, David Mitchell, 81 West Fifth Street, Fremont. I actually represent Victor Outdoor, which is a company owned by the Nelson family, which also owns the Eagle Distributing distributorships, which are headquartered here in Fremont. They have a significant outdoor advertising company. And so we were asked to approach the city to see if we could reach some compromises in what was otherwise an outlawed concept as far as outdoor advertising is concerned. So we know what we're talking about with the ECMs. It's essentially the same thing as the digital signs that you see at 23rd and Bell Street, as well as the sign that you see as you're approaching Valley. Basically, it's a big screen TV in the form of an outdoor advertising structure. And so our overall intent is to meet a demand from business that we have found, particularly with respect to 23rd and Bell Street, because there's a huge waiting list for advertisers to get on there, which means there's a demand for these types of boards. And so this ordinance will allow some additional structures to be built out in the bypass area, but it'll also reduce the proliferation of outdoor advertising structures. Instead of having a whole bunch of static ones like you see maybe going to St. Joe, Missouri or other places, they will be spaced no more than 5,000 feet from one another. So the corridor is really fairly limited as far as the number of signs, and the signs are that go up are several $100,000 per face. And so these structures aren't going to go up unless Mr. Nelson has determined there's an actual demand for it. So we feel these structures will reduce the proliferation as a practical matter. If structures were otherwise permitted out on the bypass, they allow local businesses to advertise their business and draw business into town. It's also going to allow the community, both the county and the city, to utilize those types of structures for public service announcements, whether we're talking about floods, tornadoes, Amber Alerts, anything of a public nature, even goodwill things like festivals in the park and whatnot. It gives a great opportunity for the city as well to advertise what it has going on, as well as to warn citizens in those events where citizens need warning. Overall, we've worked hard on language that would benefit any applicant, not just Victor Outdoor, but if Lamar or anyone else wanted to take advantage of this ordinance, they certainly can. We were just the ones who lobbied for these changes, and we feel that the compromises we have reached were reasonable ones. The only one additional one, since we were working on some language under section B2 of the ordinance, where it requires on the north corridor, which is essentially North 77, where we could put a replacement structure in exchange for taking down 4 sign faces. The ordinance indicates that the leading edge toward the right of way needs to be no more than 25 feet away from the right of way. And I would ask the council to consider 40 feet to give us some wiggle room in wherever they find a willing property owner to allow a lease for an additional structure. It gives us just a little bit more wiggle room in case we need to place the structure a few feet away, a few more feet away from the right of way. And I guess I'd ask Jennifer to weigh in on that, but otherwise, we appreciate the efforts of Jennifer as well as the mayor in meeting with us. This has been a fairly significant negotiated out item, so they are truly looking out for the best interests of the city and making sure that the ordinance that is ultimately adopted is one that works for the public as well as for business. I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Any questions for the applicant?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Additional comments from the public on this item?
Red Yerger, 2318 East Fifth Street. The first thing I'd like to start with is it's unfortunate that in tonight's agenda and packet material that the report that you now have in front of you, the public did not have in front of them, which basically gave explanation, it sounds like, as to what this was all about. That's truly unfortunate. It may have been a mistake, but when you bring things in for first reading and the public doesn't have the same kind of information that you have, you need to do something about that, it seems to me. The other questions that I want to raise tonight relative to this is that this is a change of municipal code. So I assume this is going to be for first reading. Municipal code has been under rewrite now for, I don't know, a couple, 3 years. Hasn't come back to council. My question for you and staff is, are you amending the current code? Are you amending the code that Holzer Levin intends to propose? If you aren't amending or looking at the code that they intend to propose, will those changes overlay what you're doing here unless you get Holzer Levin to incorporate them? We're in a kind of a perilous prediction here where we're making changes to current code and Holzer Levin may or may not be aware of what we're doing and they bring you something that doesn't entertain this. So I encourage coordination between those efforts. If you're going to bring city code changes, I understood UDC to be imminent last year, and it's been another year since, and we haven't done anything with the incoming code. So word of caution there. Also, I encourage you to read this quite closely for some technical reasons, because there are references in here to various sections of code. It looks like in the end that this is in addition to section 11.825. And it looks like it's going to go in as section 05, even though the original material, it looks like was maybe provided by the committee or Mr. Mitchell, so that this was going into a different section. Looks like it's being incorporated in a different place. It's all well and fine, but there are references in what was written here to other sections of code that on my reading don't exist. In sections 11.824, I think it's sub G, for example, there isn't such a piece of code. So maybe they're just minor tweaks that need to be done, but I encourage the city to take a look at that before they move this on for reading to see if there are tweaks that need to be made to bring this fully into compliance. The other question that I would raise for you has to do with the corridors. I understand the electronic signage out by the Port Authority and down by the Beltway to the south and probably to the corridor north of the Beltway on 77. Obviously, others are doing that in highway zones and utilizing that. The fact that we see this on the 23rd Street corridor was somewhat surprising to me. I guess I didn't go back and research this as to whether Highway 30 was officially rerouted around the city or whether Highway 30 runs through the city, but this piece of code is written as though this is Highway 30, and maybe it still is, I don't know. It's also being written with regards to Highway 77, but in town city limits, I believe that's been ceded to the city of Fremont. That's now Broad Street. So perhaps maybe cleanup needs to be done there with regards to references if you incorporate these things. I was kind of alarmed when I read the piece, and it doesn't look like it applies now at 16th and Bell was the example. But that would imply that Bell Street is a highway corridor and that these apply along that corridor. We also have a corridor on Broad Street that I think if you look at your zoning is not, it's residential, but it doesn't contain residential zoning today. So are these folks being protected by what you're doing when you categorize the zones that this is applicable for? I just urge some caution here and some closer reading of this. Not saying that you shouldn't put something into effect, but I think it's worth taking further look at some of these things. Hopefully, if the committee is still organized, they could look at that on your behalf, or individually, you could take a look at some of those things. And if you'd like to discuss with me any questions that I might have raised tonight, I'd be happy to discuss them with you personally as individual council members. Thank you for your time.
Additional questions? Or comments from the council, or comments from the public, sorry. Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Additional comments from council on this item. Councilman Vaughn?
Yeah, as I review this, I'm not very excited about the possibility of these electronic signs going down 23rd Street. I got to be honest. There's enough distractions driving, and it takes away or adds to a certain aspect of the community if we were to allow these. And the Beltway kind of encases our community, and that's wholly attractive to do something like that out there. But here in town, I think we've got a different sort of vision for what the future of Fremont's going to look like. And in my mind, at least, it doesn't include these kind of signs in city limits. So I'm gonna have to vote no on this, as it is.
Okay. Additional comments from council? Councilman Jensen?
I would say, given the conversations tonight, especially this wasn't in the packet, I think we're good to move this past first reading, but not beyond that, and then take it from there and make sure we can get all the ducks in a row before we bring something final to third and final reading.
Okay. Councilman Von Baron?
I'd just like to echo Councilman Vaughn's concern. I think that's in the city is a different situation, different game than Beltway, some of the major thoroughfares. So I'd like to see that taken into consideration.
Okay. Any other comments from the council at this point? I will just say this has been a really good faith effort, I believe, on both parties, the city and Mr. Mitchell. And I just think that, if we pass first reading, I think there's been some good comments brought forward tonight, and we can go look at those and continue working on this. But I just think that especially along the Beltway and the highways around Fremont, we need to be able to draw people into town. And it's a good thing that we have the highway infrastructure that we have, but we also need to be able to draw folks into town as well too. So just like to have you take that into consideration when you're thinking about this as well. So. Councilman Jensen?
If there's no further comment, I'll make the motion to hold first reading of ordinance 5657.
Councilman Sukram?
I'll second that.
Okay, cast your votes.
Motion carries 6-2, Mayor.
Okay, have first reading.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, amending Exhibit B of Ordinance 5427, specifically portions of the UDC, Chapter 11, zoning subdivision and site development, Exhibit B, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing an effective date on first reading.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. All items in the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or a citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda by council or staff?
Mayor, item 11, the minutes to remove for an amendment.
Okay. Any other items? Any items from the public? Okay. Seeing none, take a motion to approve the consent agenda, items 9 and 10, 12 through 22. Councilman Vaughn,
I will make that motion.
Councilman Jensen,
I'll second.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
All right, item 11 is the dispense with and approve the September 26, 2023 City Council and Community Development Agency meeting minutes.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and thank you, Councilmember Ganem. She brought to my attention on a number of items, 8, 9, 11, 12, 16, and 17. I had Councilmember Gibson, a former council member, voting on those items when in fact it should have been Dinkins voting on those items. So I would request that those items be amended to reflect that Dinkins voted on those items.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd take a motion to amend the minutes to reflect. Councilman Sukram,
I'll make that motion to amend the minutes.
Councilman Jensen,
I'll second.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Councilman Jensen. Good on that one? Okay. All right, moving on to new business is item 23, move to receive and file the Greater Fremont Development Council Annual Report. This time, we have a staff report. Go ahead, Jody.
Sure, Jody Sanders, City Administrator. The City of Fremont and Department of Utilities have a contract with the Greater Fremont Development Council, GFDC. And as a part of that, we've asked Megan to come and present the annual report from the GFDC.
Okay.
So Megan Skiles is here.
Oh, gosh, I do this about every time I come up here. Well, thank you for having me. Megan Skiles, I'm the Executive Director and President of the Greater Fremont Development Council. I appreciate you having me here tonight. I think in your packet there was included both our 2022 annual report and then kind of an update on where we are today, just because we've had a lot of, well, we're at the end of 2023 at this point in the fourth quarter. And a lot of the projects that we're working are really multi-year projects and initiatives that take a while to get up and going. And so in that, I had included a PowerPoint on some of the things that we have been doing this past year. So if you're not very familiar with who we are and what we do, we're a 501c6 corporation. We have a board of about 20 voting members and 4 ex officio education partners, as well as one of those ex officio members is the Fremont Chamber of Commerce as well, since we partner with them on a lot of different things. But on that board of 20 voting members, the city is represented by Mayor Spellerberg. The Department of Utilities is represented by the DU board chair, Michelle Weiss, and then also the county is represented by Supervisor Bob Missles. So we've got a lot of good community, public entity cooperation and support and feedback that we get at our monthly board meetings about the various activities that we're doing. And so we kind of have 4 key areas of focus. One is business attraction, and that's probably what you hear me and see of me most at this group, just because it does involve a lot of development and things happening within the community. But we also do work in business retention and expansion, workforce development, and quality of life. So we've got a staff of 3 of us full-time, and then 1 part-time. So kind of a small but mighty team that gets a lot of things done. So I'll kind of maybe just talk us through what happens in each of our 4 pillars. Again, that's business attraction, business retention and expansion, workforce development, and quality of life. So the business attraction piece, our goal is to secure new investment and support job creation through the successful attraction of new companies and expansion of existing companies in Fremont. So last year in our annual report, you'll see that we fielded 41 business attraction inquiries in 2022. And those inquiries are a variety of types of businesses. It's everything from offices. We had a few medical providers looking for private practice spaces, to large scale industrial projects, which is again, probably what you know GFDC most for, but we do a little bit of all of it. We hosted 9 new to market companies for visits to our community. So those are companies that don't have a presence here and might not even have a presence in the greater Omaha or Nebraska region. And they're looking for a location in the Midwest. And so we will host them, kind of give them a tour of the city and kind of try and help sell our community to that business. We also have helped a lot over the past year with the formation of the Port Authority and assisted the city and county heavily on the application for that, and did a lot of consulting on what the statute actually said and how we could pursue that and what that opportunity looks like long-term for our community. And then finally, I think one of the more notable things that happened for us in 2022 that we'll be working through really for the next probably 9 years. It's a 9-year contract. We also received a $30 million site development grant for a multi-tenant rail served industrial park, which we're kind of overlaying over that Port Authority district. And so at this point, it's allowing us to hire a engineering firm to kind of take a look at what best development might look like, what we need to make, what considerations we need to make for traffic, all those sorts of things. And so they're doing a lot of consulting with us on that. That kicked off in, I think, April of this year, and we're expecting that to kind of wrap up first quarter of next year. And at the end of it, we should have some planning that will help inform the planning commission and help inform the planning department. I think they're going to take a look at what other code looks like for similar type districts across the US and what ours needs to look like here too. So really kind of dive into kind of best practice for what that looks like. So now I'll kind of skip over to business retention and expansion. So there, our goal is to support our existing businesses by connecting them with resources, aiding in expansion, and advocating for opportunities to address challenges in the greater Fremont area. So last year, we met with 84 businesses in the community just to kind of get a check-in and see how things are going, what their challenges are, what their opportunities are. And we compile all of this data that we hear during these meetings and kind of have that to help inform our program of work. And so last year we did all of these visits, and towards the end of the year, we could kind of aggregate some of that data and say, okay, this is something we're hearing over and over again as a challenge for our community. What can we do to address that? So that informs a lot of our program of work and just gives us a good idea of where we're going as a community as a whole. We also started last year a small business education series. This year to date, we have had 3 sessions and have had a total of 62 attendees across those 3 sessions. So we've had a session on an Excel workshop, kind of doing best practices there. We've done a marketing for small businesses, and we've done a credit building workshop, and all of those in partnership with the Fremont Chamber, but it's open to people outside of the chamber membership. We're also doing a tax prep later this year, and then last year and both this year, we're doing a half-day QuickBooks workshop to help small businesses. It's we partner with the Nebraska Enterprise Foundation Fund, and they bring in an expert in that and provide a $40 5-hour workshop. So we think it's really accessible to a variety of different businesses to kind of help them get off on the right foot. We also administer some state grant funds. So over the past couple of years, we've administered about $1,050,000 of site and building development grant funds for local expansions, which is a really great thing too. On the workforce development and preparedness, our goal is to promote skills and professional development that ensures our current and future workforces are prepared to meet the needs of existing and prospective businesses, and to create awareness of the career opportunities in Greater Fremont. So we have a couple different initiatives that we do that through. One is a mentorship program with Midland, where we pair Midland students with mentors in the community to kind of, one, help them figure out what they need to do to be successful in that in their chosen career path, but two, hopefully make our community a little bit stickier and help those students see that there's opportunities for them here in Fremont post-graduation. We ran a manufacturing jobs relation professional development training in partnership with the Nebraska Manufacturing Extension. And we had about 12 participants in that from 5 different companies. And it was a day-long workshop that kind of gives those working in manufacturing, construction, some leadership development opportunities that are maybe look a little different when there's safety and machinery and equipment involved. And then we've also done a lot of programming this past year with Fremont Public Schools. This past summer, we started the teacher externship program where we actually pair students in the school, or sorry, not students, teachers or counselors in the school over the summer with a business where they job shadow for 20 hours to get some real life experience. The teachers are provided a scholarship to compensate them for their time, but the idea is that hopefully they're able to take some of that real world experience back to the classroom and share that with their students. We also just recently announced that we were awarded $700,000 in grants in partnership with FPS for career and technical education equipment that will be going in the new CTE center, as well as some school equipment that'll be going in the middle school. So we're really excited about that announcement. We developed a career pathways brochure that it kind of takes a look at some of the most in-demand, high skill, high wage jobs in Fremont, and kind of just provides a brochure about what those opportunities are in our community and the kind of education a student needs to get there. And we work with the schools and the Fremont Chamber on the career fairs every year as well. We also started a talent attraction campaign. This was one of the things that came out of our meetings with the 84 businesses across the community, that they said that they would have particularly difficult jobs to fill, and there just wasn't quite the talent pool that they needed to fill that position here in Fremont. And they might get a couple great applications from Omaha or from the Valley area or something like that, but there was maybe a perception that Fremont was too far away, not understanding that we're on 275 and it's not that far away, or there were just certain perceptions about Fremont. And so we started a digital ad campaign to kind of promote our community better, and not just as a great place to work, but we also did 3 months promoting the job opportunities, but also 3 months promoting quality of life opportunities. So great places to shop and eat downtown, and activities and lakes and all those sorts of things. So we just kicked that off November last year, and we ran it 6 months this year. I think we'll continue to plan to do that, but we did get for the Grow Your Career in Fremont campaign, we had about 4,700 website visits during the 3 months that ran, as well as 3,800 visits June through September, essentially in 60 days that the Quality of Life campaign ran. So I think it's doing a good job of just promoting our community as a whole. And then the last area that we'll talk about really quick is quality of life. So we do a lot in the quality of life space, but it's really kind of turned into housing programming over the past several years. So our goal there is to enhance the quality of life for all current and future residents, to ensure that Fremont area residents and companies have a bright future full of opportunities. So our staff does serve on a variety of committees. We've worked a lot with the planning department and how to kind of help promote the UDC feedback, or the comprehensive plan, or the housing affordability plan, and getting as much stakeholder engagement as we can and those kinds of things. But the housing programs is something that lives within GFDC that we really have a lot of ownership over. So we did housing studies both in 2017 and 2020. And both of them, I think it's probably no surprise to anyone here, those came back and said, we had a really tight housing market and there was a deficit of housing to have a healthy market that people can move through and live in our community comfortably. So since then, we've applied for a couple of different programs, and today we're actually managing about 4.4 million in housing revolving loan funds. So we have one fund that was actually created by LB 840 that we operate as a revolving loan fund, and that went towards the 505 building and infrastructure for Bluestem Commons. Those funds are starting to come back in. So, you know, in the next couple of years, we'll be able to lend those out to other programs. The Dodge County Investment Fund, it works all across Dodge County, and it's about a $1.9 million fund that was raised by community contributions and a successful application to the Rural Workforce Housing Fund that DED manages. That has brought Fremont Commons, done some projects in Bluestem Commons, done some single family homes in Scribner. And then our most recent fund that we've secured, we just announced about a month or two ago, is the Fremont Home Fund. And that's a $1.5 million fund. That was another allotment of rural workforce housing dollars and community contributions. And we're really excited about that one. It's really focused on infill and redevelopment opportunities. And so we're actually, so far three projects have been approved for it. And all of these projects are over 100-year-old structures in our community that needed significant rehabilitation to be safe, healthy housing again. And so these funds are allowing us to kind of start tackling that need, and it revolves. And so hopefully it'll be something that we can tackle a lot of projects over the next several years. So that's the fastest version I can give. I'm sorry of all the things we're doing, but I appreciate the time.
Great. Thank you for that update. Are there any questions or thoughts or comments from the council on the report from GFDC? Councilman Ellis, do you have?
There's so much a question for finance. It's got here financial impact. Now, do we not donate or any money out of our budget for the GFDC every year?
Yes, we do budget money for GFDC. I was referring to the financial impact of her report.
How much do we do a year?
So the city contributes $10,000 and the utilities contributes $90,000.
A total of $100,000?
Yes, sir.
A year goes to GFDC.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the council? All right. Thank you. I just want to say I appreciate all the work that Megan and her team has done, considering the housing need we have, as well as retaining and expanding the businesses here in Fremont and the workforce needs, as well as helping to attract our community and really just make our community a great place to live, work, and raise a family. A lot of that is the promotion aspect and what we have to offer here in Fremont. And I appreciate Megan and the work that she's done to be able to keep Fremont moving forward and highlight all the great things that we're doing. So, Councilman Jensen.
I'll echo the mayor's sentiments, and if there's no further comment, I'll make the motion to receive and file the report.
Councilman Sukram.
I'll second that.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Item 24 is resolution 2023-251, authorizing the mayor to sign contract with Cloud Peak Energy Resources LLC to purchase contract coal for 2024 and 2025.
No. Thanks. Mayor, City Council, Jeff Shanahan, Utility Manager. This is for the coal supply agreement for Londy Wright Power Plant for the next 2 years. We went out and requested quotes from 3 of the mines that are served by Union Pacific. We got those quotes back. Bidder 1 and bidder 2 are both similar types coals. Both of them offered similar proposals. One was that on quantity, they allowed us to take plus or minus 1 train from your schedule, and you had to have your schedule coal submitted by mid-June to late June of the year you're going to request the coal. If you remember last year, we had trouble getting coal, And so it would have been more of a, we'd had to make a schedule and it's a take or pay type of deal. So that's a little bit risky. The other thing is we've ran some of this coal in the plant before and some of it causes slagging. So we've been using Cloud Peak or Navajo for the last number of cycles. And our boiler has been tuned for this kind of coal. We've had combustion engineers out and we do all kinds of testing in the boiler to make sure that we're firing it optimally. It doesn't leave a lot of slagging on the boiler. Now we still have to go in and clean the boilers, don't get me wrong, but there's not the big slagging that requires us to use dynamite or explosives to knock it off, or have to go in there with real high pressure washers to knock it off. Other thing is this is a lower quality or a higher quality, a lower level of mercury is in this coal. And so it, helps us in our mercury reductions, which is part of the scrubber system when we installed that. The coal has gone up in price. It's about 8% above what we paid last year. And then the following year, it's about 1.5% over the 8%. So we're recommending that, or we're requesting that the council go ahead and proceed with Cloud Peak for our coal supply for the next 2 years, or Navajo transitional.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Shanahan on this? Councilman Von Baron?
I just missed the connection. Cloud Peak, Navajo. I thought they were interchangeable.
They are. They're the same company. It used to be called Cloud Peak. I think they went through some bankruptcy type reorganizations and it became Navajo Transitional Energy Corporation. Has that been about 2 cycles, Jody, or is it just in our last 2 years? Ben, do you remember? Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions on this item? Comments from the public on this item? Okay. Seeing none, are there any additional comments from council? If there are none, I would take a motion. Councilman Jensen,
I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2023-251.
Councilwoman Ganem,
Second.
cast your votes.
The motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
And item 25 is a resolution 2023-252 authorizing the mayor to sign contract with Union Pacific Railroad to purchase transportation services for 2024 through 2028.
Mayor, City Council, Jeff Shanahan, Utility Manager. This, we cannot solicit other bids. Union Pacific is our rail supplier. A few years ago, we reached out to see if there was any alternatives. You can't do it logistically and we couldn't afford to put it in financially. So Union Pacific is basically our sole supplier for rail services to Lundy Wright plant. So we reached out to Union Pacific and asked them for a proposal to, because our contract expires with them December 31st this year. We wanted to make sure we had some secure transmission or transportation for this. So we reached out to them and there was a couple different ways we could do it. One was an index price increases. That's what we were on. In 2021 to 2022, we saw a 5% increase, 5.4. And in 2023 over 2022, we saw a 9.2% increase. They proposed if we were to stay on that index rate this year, we would see about a 12.9% increase. We said that was, not going to be able to work in our budgets. We can't be going up and down in like budgets. We agreed on a 5% per year for the 5-year term, makes it so that we can budget for it. We know what our costs are going to be. And it gives us some, stability in our structure for rates and everything else. So we're proposing that we go with the 5-year term, 5% increase per year for that period.
Councilwoman Ganem, did you have a question? Okay. Any questions? Thank you. Comments from the public on this item? Okay, additional comments from council? If there are none, I would take a motion. Councilman Jensen,
I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2023-252.
Councilman Sukram,
I will second that.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Item 26 is an ordinance 5655, repealing and replacing natural gas ordinance. Of staff report.
Mayor, City Council, Jeff Shanahan, Utility Manager. In November is the start of the winter gas season. So typically in late September, early October, we would send out notice to our customers that are interruptible gas and notify them that there's a possibility that once we go into the winter season, they would have to be interrupted. As we're putting together our gas plan for this winter, and we've been doing it, for the last couple of months, trying to get organized on where we're going to buy, how much we're going to buy, how much we're going to pay, and this and that. Started looking at the rate ordinance to see about who's interruptible, how we can manage that portion of it. And as we went through the usages, we discovered that there was 2 interruptible rate classes within our ordinance. One is a commercial rate class and one was a large volume rate class. When we analyze our system, this ordinance it's probably been changed from a rates value standpoint, but not necessarily in some of the classes themselves. Far back, we know back in 2001, these same numbers existed. So as we look at it today, we're at about 24,000 MCF a day on peak demand. Where in 21, we were probably around 10,000. So a customer that's 150 is significant. Not that they're not significant now, but when we go to start curtailing people, we need to be able to cut off large enough volumes. So what we decided to do was eliminate the class for commercial interruptible. We don't have telemetering on their meters, so we have really no way to verify it short of sending a service tech out to read the meters and report back to us. So we really don't have the ability to do that. On the larger volume ones, we do read those meters because they impact our system and we need it for scheduling. So what we did was in this rate ordinance, we eliminated the commercial interruptible. We raised the level of qualifications to get onto the firm classification from 200 to 500 MCF a day at your peak day for the year. So it isn't that you have to be 500 every day, 365 a year. It's just on that peak day, we want to have you be over 500. And then in order to qualify for interruptible, which helps is that you have to have over 1,000 for a peak day. So we have notified all of the commercial customers that were on the interruptible that we were proposing this ordinance. We called them. We met face to face with a few of them. We went out to their shops and talked to them. We had a couple of some of the companies we called 2 or 3 times just to make sure everybody was crystal clear. And that's where we are. The other thing we changed was we eliminated Board of Public Works for the approval and changed that to City of Fremont City Council. So it's been in there for quite some time.
Great. Any questions from the council? Councilman Vaughn?
Any significant pushback from the large volume customer base?
No, the large volumes, what happens is some of the customers, their whole facility was large volume index based. Well, when the way we set this up was if your meters that feed the facility don't qualify for large volume, then you fall back to commercial rate. The commercial rate is more of a fixed cost, where the large volume is basically index based. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. But that was we had one customer that they understand. Nobody wants to see their rates possibly go up or go, they want to see them all go down. But no, in fact, some of the commercial customers, once we met with them and explained what interruptible meant, they said, take us off. We don't, when their finance people or something, they see, well, we can get a discount if we do this. Yeah, great, let's take the discount. Operations folks see that and say, no, we don't have the backups to do that. Take us off of there. So we've had a couple customers say that.
Any other questions from the council? Okay, and Mr. Shanahan, is it your intention, or I know there's a November 1st is when we need to one reading, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we would, ideally, we would like to implement this on November 1st if we could. That's up to you folks,
Yeah.
if you want to have that happen or not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Any comments from the public on this item? Okay. Any additional comments from council? If there are none, I would take a motion. Councilman Vaughn,
Make motion to approve.
Councilman Jensen,
I'll second.
hold first reading. Yep. Okay. Cast your votes for this to be first reading.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
First reading.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, establishing rate schedules for natural gas system, repealing ordinance number 5583, and all other ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance, providing when this rate schedule are effective, and providing when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect on first reading.
Councilman Jensen,
I'll make the motion to suspend the rules and move ordinance 5655 to the third and final reading at this time.
Councilman Sukram,
I will second.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
We'll now have final reading.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, establishing rate schedules for natural gas system, repealing ordinance number 5583, and all other ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance, providing when the rate schedules are effective, and providing when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect on final reading.
Cast your final vote.
Ordinance is approved 8-0, Mayor.
Councilman Jensen,
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Councilman Vaughn,
I will second.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
We are adjourned. Have a good night, everyone.